Hello, I'm Operator Drewski. I'm a lanky airsofter boy who's played realistic shooter games and milsim for about 15 years now. I'd like to dive into an idea that I have that I believe would greatly improve what was once one of my favorite franchises, Ghost Recon. Although I'm just a civilian, I commonly play these games with veterans of the military, anywhere from Marines straight out of boot to US Army Rangers and F-16 pilots, and I've bounced the following ideas off of those members of the military, hardcore Ghost Recon fans, and my own crew of my buds. I've played all of the Ghost Recon titles since the original, at least the ones that are on mainline consoles and PC, and throughout each installment, it's obvious that Ghost Recon has drifted away from the original vision and theme that Tom Clancy and David Michaels created when they wrote the original Ghost Recon novel. I'm not saying that this is primarily from my own opinion. If you read the reviews of the game, visit the forum or the Reddit, most of the criticism is based off primarily the lack of an immersive and realistic feeling shooter game and overall theme. The gear is sloppy and primarily based on who Ubisoft could get to sponsor them or what the UB devs saw on Airsoft Gear websites. The guns are unimaginative, they're bland, they feel all the exact same. The general gameplay makes for a poor tactical shooter experience that feels closer to a mod of GTA 5 than a standalone shooter game. The story, especially with Breakpoint, is arcadey, non-immersive, and has contradicting narratives and characters. It's really odd. And just a small note before we get into it, if you might have noticed, the entire Ghost Recon franchise was developed at Red Storm Studios located in North Carolina, United States. But Ghost Recon Wildlands and Ghost Recon Breakpoint were developed by Ubisoft Paris. I would like to think of what I have to show you today as a mixture of ideas. It's a reboot of the original feeling Ghost Recon while borrowing ideas from games like Squad, Arma 3, Rainbow Six Siege, and even Destiny. Because this is a game that technically hasn't been made yet, I'm utilizing Arma 3 to showcase the general look and feel of this idea. This doesn't mean I am saying make Ghost Recon more like Arma 3, I'm just using this as a visualization tool, not a comparison. I've made sure to consider the fact that no game is perfect, therefore I'm building this idea within a reasonable range of quality and scale for a game that would have to be able to release in the next, let's say, fiscal year on PC, as well as PS5 and Xbox Series X with about 3 to 4 years of development from a Ubisoft-style AAA studio. Ghost Recon is a franchise that is currently playable on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. This means you can't fill the gameplay with too many keybinds, as controller players would fall behind. Another consideration, the game needs to be accessible for a wider audience as well. Any AAA company will simplify and quicken the gaming experience to get the player in as fast as possible into the game. The core gameplay loop needs to be an easily approachable action. This also needs to be a monetizable game. There's no way that we're getting a game from Ubisoft at this point without some form of microtransactions. I know, I hate it too, but again, this isn't a pipe dream. This is a game that I think that Ubisoft has potential to make, and I really want to kind of pitch it to that sort of idea of a actual pitchable game to Ubisoft, because we all know Ubisoft is Ubisoft. Modern day, the US Armed Forces sends in a battalion of ghosts, a Navy SEAL-esque special operations unit, into a fictional version of some Middle Eastern country to serve as a precision counterterrorism unit, attacking at the source. Their duty in the area is to be tasked with special operations across a region of that country. This is a realistic plot in a fictional country. No problems with countries being butthurt about a fictional story like Bolivia's government was to Wildlands, but still keeping a realistic tone that helps support the feeling to the player they are in the shoes of a real Spec Ops soldier across the world in the middle of a mountainous desert country. In this desert are two different factions, one the country's army and two a Middle Eastern militia. The army is hostile to the US government and is very well armed. They have plentiful infantry, stuff like armored vehicles, BTRs, T-72 tanks, a few, Su-25 Frogfoots, maybe some Su-25 Mi-27 flankers, Mi-8 helicopters, and Mi-24 attack helicopters. The militia, though, is another faction that blends in with the civilian population and occasionally pops out when provoked. At most, these guys have AKs, SVDs, technical trucks, PKMs, car bombs, armored cars, HMG emplacements, mortars, IEDs, and IED drones, but they still pack a punch. They're smart, they can hide within the civilian population, and are masters at moving quickly on foot. Your ghost is your customization palette, and everything you put on your ghost determines how your ghost is going to play out in the game. There's no perks, there's no skill sets or magic numbers here that you can just pop onto your character to make him run faster. No, everything is gear based, everything is weapon based. Whatever you put on your soldier is going to be the only thing that differentiates you from another player. But just like in real life, these things actually aren't very limiting. There's extremely different variants and sort of loadouts that you can have on a character that extremely changes his effectiveness in different situations. For example, a general combat role character is going to have a plate carrier, a helmet, some type of assault rifle like an M4, and he's going to have a basic BDU camo uniform, for example, and he's set to go on a standard combat mission. If you're talking about a breacher who is going to be the first guy that breaches into a door into some buildings, think Montania's clothing set from Rainbow Six Siege, where he has full chest, arm, leg armor, as well as a helmet with a face shield. Now, this stuff is very bulky. It's going to slow him down, but it will block bullets similar to, let's say, Escape from Tarkov's ballistic system. Highly penetrating rounds will go, usually right through any little level 3 Kevlar pants, but, maybe it'll stop a pistol round. It'll stop buckshot from a shotgun. But again, this person is going to be very slow, and they're basically going to be the guy who's in the MRAP the entire time until you actually have to breach the compound. Then you put him in front with his ballistic shield and his breaching kit. And just like real life, there's a lot of documentation and studies done on camouflage. So for example, you could add certain pieces of camouflage to your kit that would slightly slow down your character, as it would become a little bit more clumsy to carry, let's say, a ghillie suit on your back or wearing ghillie netting around your head. For example, you could add certain layers of camouflage, amounts of camouflage that would slightly, slow you down but slightly conceal you more. And then there's more camouflage levels like a full ghillie suit that's going to be very bulky, kind of clumsy. You're going to get caught on things. You're not going to be able to move as quickly, but you're going to be nearly invisible whenever somebody is trying to observe you. And maybe even make it where if you're in a desert environment, the game actually can have a kind of calculation as to how camouflaged your character is in a certain environment. So if you choose the wrong camo, for example, a woodland or a dark black camo, for example, in a desert environment, you're not going to be as camouflaged as the guy that's wearing, let's say, multicam arid or ATAX. The point is to have the game be balanced in a certain way where you can actually easily feel these changes and differences of your kit when playing in the game. For example, a guy wearing a chest rig and a boonie hat is going to be a lot more lightweight and is going to be able to easily recon a lot of areas and maybe move on foot a lot farther and a lot faster, but he's not going to have much protection from bullets. I mean, this is pretty simple. It's stuff that you see in Tarkov, it's stuff that you see in Arma. Why not implement this into a game like Ghost Recon, where right now we have these magical perks and these magical gun upgrades that just like magically make your gun more powerful? Why not focus on realism and ground the game out and make it actually a understandable level of, sort of customization on your character? At the moment, every ghost that I walk past in Ghost Recon Breakpoint has no meaning. The camouflage they're wearing doesn't make any effect. The gear that they're wearing doesn't have any effect because there's a costume mode where you can basically just put on a plate carrier that's super bulky and then go sprint 3 miles, and you'll be sprinting at the same speed as a guy that's literally wearing no plate carrier and no backpack. It's really cool in something like Arma to physically look at somebody and be able to understand, just based on their kit, what sort of role they're going to be playing. If you're shaking your head saying this is too much realism to be accessible to a wide audience, remember that Escape from Tarkov has remained in the top 20 games on Twitch in the year 2020, and it has 12 different types of ammunition for the AK-74 and its variants. 12 12 different types. DayZ and Arma 3, very realistic shooter games, have sold a total of 11 million copies. For comparison, Halo 3 sold 14.5 million copies. There is a large audience for realistic, large-scale shooter games. And realism isn't boring if it's done right, and Ubisoft Paris has proved for the last 2 games that they don't believe this. If the developer studies the complexities of real-life weapons and gear and strategy and tactics, there's hundreds of different variables to a soldier's weapons and kit that can be both interesting to play with and grounded to reality. The weapons in Ghost Recon Wildlands and Breakpoint are boring, bland. They all feel the same. I've mentioned this before in my Breakpoint review, so I won't go into specifics, but I just want you to try out the different weapons in Battlefield 4, Tarkov, Destiny, and feel how 2 different weapons in the same category can look and feel entirely different. This encourages the player to try new weapons and new setups even though they might have favorites, because all weapons are fun to play with. And how should the weapons and rifles feel in this game, in my opinion? Well, honestly, just take Tarkov's feel and mix it up a little with maybe some of Squad or Battlefield's weapon feel. I don't think I can personally think up any ideas here. The best is already done. Make the terminal ballistics realistic, maybe not simulation level, but make bullets fly fast and accurately, no weapon cone spread, no stupid gravity of the sun weapon around drop in the distance like Ghost Recon currently has. The recoil of the weapon and my heavy breathing after running half a mile are the only 2 things I want throwing off my aim in a realistic shooter game. Not spread, not weird bullet drop that literally makes no sense of why it's implemented in the game. Just make simple, realistic ballistics, and I think it would be perfectly fine. At the beginning of the gameplay loop, you enter a military base. Around you, you can see around, let's say, 32 other players. Local VoIP is open, and so you can talk to them and group up and get in some games. Some kid is coughing into their Xbox 360 mic to your left, and to the right, some dude is playing an ear-rape Halo theme. But luckily, you can quickly aim at any player in this area and easily mute or block them, or mute all non-friends in the base through a pause menu, let's say. Again, you're a battalion of ghosts. Fun fact, SEAL Team 6, or DevGru, consists of 1,000 members separated into about 7 different squadrons. So there's a lot of people there. It's not just like a group of 5 guys. There are a few different areas here in this place, in this base as well. A shooting range with dynamic pop-up targets, obstacle course with targets, a shoot house which procedurally generates a new layout every week where you can test out your weapons, attachments, and gear on the move. A vehicle driving area where you can fly helicopters, test out different vehicles, shoot tanks. This is a place where you can't get too bored if you're waiting for your friend to come online. It's a mini playground for grown men and ladies to play dress up and drive tanks. What's not to like here? Your heads-up display as well is a clean one. We play complicated Arma 3 ops all the time with barely a crosshair on our screen. Tarkov has barely actually any HUD any more than a stance indicator and a stamina bar. I really like Tarkov's chamber and magazine check. I think instead of a ammo counter at the bottom right of the screen, utilizing a modifier system of controls, you could fit these actions into a controller's control scheme pretty easily. For example, the reload button is X on the Xbox controller, but if I press down left stick before clicking X, it would modify the X button to become a magazine check action. If you clicked left stick plus Y, for example, instead of left stick plus X, this would physically make your ghost glance down at his or her chest, showcasing the amount of magazines you still have in your plate carrier, chest rig, or belt rig. Any grenades, explosive charges, etc. It would also pop up a temporary list of each item you have on you, similarly to how Tarkov will write out in words how many rounds are left in your magazine when inspecting it. This list would fade away in a few seconds, and you could easily click it again if you wanted, if you missed a word or something. You'd also have a full inventory menu similar to Arma 3 or Tarkov. This would be rather simplistic though, because again, it needs to be accessible and easy to do, easy to move around on a controller, where you could pick up different weapons, gear, and transfer those items between your backpack, a larger storage container, and your vest and belt, basically a Minecraft hotbar. On your HUD, 0 enemy detection icons, 0 marks over enemy heads. We don't need that. Ubisoft, you might think that gamers need that in Assassin's Creed, but in a realistic tactical shooter game, we really don't. We have the ability to remember where enemies are and think, and I don't understand how Ubisoft thinks that just filling your screen with as much HUD as possible is a good idea in any way. I get that this is a gameplay element of the game since Advanced Warfighter, that you can fly up your drone and mark enemies, but at this point, it's outdated. It's ugly. I really do think that Ghost Recon could change and be changed for the better, and maybe I should utilize my teammates to call out contacts for me rather than relying on magic 3D markers. Maybe teammates helping you out is actually a very, very good feeling and makes for awesome gameplay compared to just heads-up display markers that ignore the idea of possibly having a teammate, you know, communicate to you from a drone and entrusting a teammate with that job. I mean, I feel like a lot of the things in this game are trying to support the fact that you don't need a team, yet this is a 4-player co-op game. Just a simple, clean HUD filled with only the things that are absolutely necessary. Sea of Thieves does this pretty well, and I mean, it looks like an arcadey game. The world map is a physical map on the ship. Your island maps are physical pieces of paper that you hold in your hand. What if your character had to physically, whenever you wanted to open up the map, take out a map, fold it on the ground, and turn on a red light and observe the map under a red light at nighttime? What if you drew on the map and teammates could see drawings appear on there so you could plan out different attacks and movements on different bases? Be pretty cool, right? So there's 3 different game modes. The first one we're going to be talking about is the mainline large game mode. Kind of think of it like raids in Destiny. Large scale, long-term sort of game modes that are very difficult and very tactical. This one's called let's just call it Operations. This is a public queue, 45 to, let's say, 90-minute long game mode consisting of 1 to 16 players engaging in large-scale PvE Spec Ops missions. These missions will have a planning phase where players can have up to 15 minutes to plan unless the majority votes is ready, arrange their weapons and kits, draw movement lines and plans on the map. Players will split into multiple squads of 5, and each squad will have a designated squad leader as well. Each player can talk to any player in the operation with local VoIP of up to around 30 meters. Think the VoIP from Rust or DayZ, something similar to that. Each player in a squad can also talk across any distance with their squad radio, accessible by toggling just like the D-pad down button or a PC counterpart. Squad leaders also share a command channel between themselves, also accessible by just toggling the D-pad down once more to toggle in between the squad and command channels. Again, the squad leaders share a channel together, and then within their own squads, there's channels as well within those squads. A team of 16 players queue together and are tasked with a randomly generated mission. This could range from VIP rescue, convoy ambush, search and destroy enemy assets, clear zone, capture town, steal vehicle or cargo, and many more missions. These missions and the entire game would have 4 different difficulties: easy, medium, hard, and realistic. Unlike the current Ghost Recon difficulty, which is probably one of the worst designed difficulties I've ever seen in any game, these settings don't adjust anything having to do with health or damage. If you shoot a guy in the head, he's dead across the board. If you get shot in the head, you're incapacitated and can be revived unless the enemy walks up to you and double taps you. Difficulty shouldn't mean more hurdy bullets. I don't know, Ubisoft, why? It means added difficulty, not more hurdy bullets. More AI, better aiming AI, better strategizing AI, AI that begin to throw smoke grenades when advancing at medium difficulty, AI that begin to set up on surrounding hilltops with MG nests on the hard difficulty, AI that can revive other down but not out AI on realistic difficulty. I don't know, the possibilities here are endless. I built this idea off of the rough sketch that Halo Reach has for AI difficulty. On easy, enemies will walk into your grenades without a care in the world and don't dodge your aim very much if they see you targeting them. On legendary though, an elite is an expert on movement suppression, knowing when to take cover, when to dodge grenades, and it can even like flank you and things. It's really interesting to see how much depth difficulty can possibly have than just the bullets are more hurdy on extreme mode. Here's an example of a simple, easy mission. A small town is filled with 40 or so insurgents. Depending on how many players are in this operation, this number could dynamically rise or fall. They are spread throughout the town. Some are garrisoned in some buildings on guard duty, some are sitting around campfires, some are in the comms room. A few are patrolling the streets and surrounding area in a 500-meter radius. A ghost approaches a 4-man patrol about 500 meters from that objective, out of earshot for a suppressed M4 to really be heard from the base. The ghost shoots and neutralizes 3 of the 4-man patrol within seconds, but the 4th is easily close to cover, and he immediately jumps in to take it. In easy difficulty, the ghost can take his time here. Nobody's coming to help this poor insurgent behind the rock, it's just him. But what if this was upped to medium difficulty? Well, things would go slightly differently. The ghost shoots and neutralizes 3 of the insurgents, the 4th goes behind the rock. If given enough time, let's say 15 seconds of idle safe time while not actively getting shot at or something, the insurgent can reach for his walkie-talkie and call in contact on the southeast side of the base about 500 meters out. Less than a minute later, the commander of the base, a physical person located in the physical communication center, has already made the call for 2 more patrols to divert their path to support the firefight. 4 minutes later, the base sends out a technical truck with a fire team of 6 to go support the 2 patrols. The ghost would have to take out that man quickly, and if the man happened to get the message across, the enemy would be coming very soon. But what if this were on hard difficulty? The ghost shoots and neutralizes the first 3, but wait, I wasn't saying kill, I said neutralize. In hard difficulty, depending on where the round landed, an enemy can be downed from a near-fatal wound and be rendered unable to fire and move. He's basically dead, he's bleeding out, but still be alive for a duration of time until he bleeds out. In this time, if another AI teammate detects that he is hurt, let's say from an audible and visual scream/hand wave, the AI has the ability, if the area is deemed safe enough, to sling his rifle behind his back, crawl or run over to the hurt teammate, drag him to cover, or just begin first aid right where he fell. In 30 seconds, a tourniquet is on, the bandage is shoddily applied, and insurgent number 3 is able to get up and fight with a broken arm, affecting his accuracy immensely, but he can still have the chance of taking out a ghost. If shot in the leg, for example, bandage, splint, little shot of morphine, and maybe a tourniquet, 45 seconds of first aid with a light round to the leg might be able to get him on his feet again and be ready to limp around and put up a fight. This would natively punish the player for not setting up his ambush correctly, unlike current Ghost Recon difficulty where enemies just see you 3 times better for no reason and bullets are more hurty. This would actually natively, this would be a realistic method of increasing the difficulty. By increasing the abilities and the communication skills and the strategy behind the enemy, the difficulty would be naturally higher, and these AI wouldn't feel like AI anymore. They would feel like an intelligent faction that should actually be worried about. But wait, I didn't get to realistic mode yet. Realistic, in my mind, is nuts. AI throw grenades extremely accurately, almost as good as a player in the game would. They pop smokes when advancing or healing down comrades. They request mortar fire from a nearby physical mortar pit on the side of a mountain. AI will group together and use suppression to cover advancing teammates and use leapfrog techniques when moving during combat situations. They'll call for reinforcements from a physical QRF base with, about 50 men in barracks about 3 clicks northeast of this one. Also, first person only. That's right. You don't have a magic camera floating behind you in this one. Get that out of here. Our little ghosty stumbles upon the patrol, but this is realistic difficulty, and he's able to neutralize and actually kill the patrol. He kills them all. He goes up to them and double taps all of them if they're, rolling around and able to be revived. But let's talk about realistic difficulty in a realistic method. The patrol, before it died, would regularly report into HQ of its set waypoints. This is very average for a patrol to do in real life. Every few minutes, the patrol would reach a waypoint, a predetermined waypoint, and it will audibly report to HQ something like this.
Patrol Bravo to HQ.
HQ to Bravo, go.
Patrol Bravo has reached waypoint GOAT. I repeat, Patrol Bravo has reached waypoint GOAT.
HQ to Bravo, copy that. So if suddenly in the next 15 minutes, if HQ doesn't hear Patrol Bravo calling out that they've reached waypoint Piggy, he'll get suspicious. He'll call them over the radio. HQ to Bravo, Patrol, do you read? HQ now knows that Patrol Bravo is either having radio issues, cannot speak, and is in immediate danger, or has already been taken out. Their last known position was at waypoint GOAT, heading to waypoint Piggy, a straight line, so even if the Ghost was able to take out that squad, the area would be inspected by an 8-man team in about 15 or so minutes. But what if the enemy comms didn't work in the first place? This is where mission side objectives come in. Remember how I stated that the HQ was a physical man in a physical HQ room, how the mortar pit on the nearby mountain was a physical pit, how the QRF station nearby was a physical location? These are side objectives. You can make your attack easier by taking out these first, and it's all physical, no gamey mechanics here. The radio waves of the low power walkie-talkies is amplified by the nearby radio tower. This patrol's little walkie-talkies won't go over the big hills towards the base unless received and amplified by the radio tower. The radio tower or towers are marked on your map as a question mark before you enter the operation. For lore, let's say an overhead drone detected thermal activity in that area but didn't have time to fully inspect the area before being detected by enemy SAM sites. Same goes for the QRF base, the mortar pit, the HQ building. All of these objects could be marked on your map within large zones, giving you a rough idea of what zones the unknown side objectives are located in. And now it is your task to recon, actual reconnaissance in a Ghost Recon game. Let's go! If you take the time to recon these zones, you can pick and choose which ones to take out before going into the main objective. After optionally searching for and neutralizing the zones of your choosing, you can choose to attack the main objective. Most of these objectives will be in the form of military compounds, camps, and occupied towns or cities. All of these locations will have mixtures of different components that make up a military base. Things like an HQ room, a power generator, vehicle depot, barracks, guard towers, and bunkers. These components could be mixed and matched at different missions to change up the flow of attacking the bases. A hasty campsite fob, for example, would simply not have a vehicle depot and therefore be unable to send out vehicles to defend the base with. Some bases would rely primarily on their interior defenses like watchtowers, SAM sites, HQ rooms, and bunkers, instead of relying as much on patrols or scouts. And each time you play a mission, the bases and their assets could be procedurally generated as well. This would keep players on their toes if they happen to receive an objective at the same location they've attacked in the game before. And even on top of that, the main objective could be entirely different. Instead of search and destroy the flankers in Hangar Bravo 5, it could be find and capture Commander Abu McBavu. And I hope in your mind I've portrayed and painted this picture well enough where you kind of understand what I want out of a Ghost Recon game. Currently, Ghost Recon is a franchise that is just a tactical shooter game, and you really have to make your own challenges to be truly challenged in the game. Even at the highest difficulty, the game isn't truly difficult. It's not interesting difficult like, let's say, Dark Souls. It's more of just annoying difficult. It's annoying because the gameplay is just bland, the AI are bland, the elements of the bases are just bland. I don't know, it all feels the same. Even on the hardest difficulty, will that actually change the I guess activity, the smartness of the artificial intelligence, or will that just make them stronger and make them shoot better? I really hope that in the long run, in the end game of Ghost Recon Wildlands, that the artificial intelligence actually is hard to fight. But what this would turn into, what I'm trying to describe here, is something that would be regarded as the Dark Souls of tactical shooter games. This would be the game that if you played that game regularly, people would go, oh crap, that guy knows his stuff, because you would have to use real life strategies to fight against the artificial intelligence in this game. I mean, think of the difficulty of Destiny raids. If you've ever played a raid in Destiny, even with just your group of friends who are pretty good at the game, you've probably experienced some very difficult raids if you are a regular player of Destiny. Have you ever experienced that level of difficulty truly in Ghost Recon Breakpoint or Ghost Recon Wildlands? I would say across my experiences of 800 hours in Wildlands, probably maybe 200 in Breakpoint, and then maybe 1,000 in both Destiny 1 and 2, I would say I've never had an experience that was half as difficult as an average Destiny raid in Ghost Recon. I mean, we had to challenge ourselves to have fun with videos that we did for Ghost Recon Wildlands back in 2017. We had to challenge ourselves so hard that we would limit ourselves on the extreme difficulty already, by the way. We would limit ourselves to 1 bullet per operator. 4 people total, 4 bullets total. Oh my gosh. You shouldn't have to make your own challenges to make the game interesting to play. The game should have easier game modes. I'm not saying it shouldn't be accessible whatsoever. It can have the easier game modes, but it should really strive, just similarly to how Halo tells you that heroic is the way that Halo is meant to be played. It should strive for a truly difficult experience, a truly strategic experience that with real life strategy and a little bit of logic, you'll be able to overcome any enemy forces in this game. That's the picture I'm trying to paint for you here. A truly difficult game, but not a Ghost Recon Breakpoint turned up to extreme difficulty difficult. Not an annoying, gamey difficult, but a real, truly logical, mental experience. So that's the gist of the operations game mode. Now we have 2 more game modes to go. I think the second one is pretty similar, honestly. It's also additionally a PvE game mode, and as well as most likely there'd be kind of a 4th game mode, which would just be a free roam, kind of do whatever you want, sort of similar to how Wildlands and Breakpoint play out right now. Maybe have the story mode go through the free roam, I don't know. But the second mode would be something that you can do quickly. Maybe a 30-minute tops sort of mini operation with a smaller group of players with less time to prepare. It would just be something like how Destiny has raids, for example, and raids would be similar to how we just described the operations, as well as strikes, which are little 20 to 30 minute short little missions that you can, do as you're eating breakfast before work. And as you would play throughout these game modes, you would earn progression points, which you could use to unlock different levels of gear. Not levels like you're thinking, though. I'm talking about different amounts of gear that is realistically based within reality. So you could unlock helmets that are maybe slightly more damage resistant, but also have downsides as well. These aren't upgrades, they're modifications to your playstyle. So over time, you could progress to kind of get to the, I would say, extremes of certain variables, like a super bulky armored player or a super lightweight, sleek, guy that's wearing a super tiny micro Haley strategic chest rig and has very, very light gear on him, very, very light weapon, for example. You could get on the extremes after you level up for quite a while, but when you first start the game, it's going to try to build up your gear set to be a well-rounded player. Throughout your progression, you'll unlock different types of helmets, some of which will have the similar stats as others, but then there's also going to be certain styles of helmets or armor or pants or shirts that have special kind of abilities to them, like a uniform that is basically a wetsuit that allows you to put on flippers and go underwater and swim quickly, and a rebreather kit so you can dive underwater as well and keep breathing, or a paratrooper harness so that you can attach your backpack to your chest while you're jumping out of planes. Again, these aren't really special abilities, they're just special types of gear that are used for special needs, and so when you see a person wearing this sort of gear, you know exactly what his style of gameplay is going to be. This would also leave a ton of room for post-launch content. After the game is launched, you could add more militaries full of gear. You could add, let's say a Russian pack full of tons of different Russian EMR flora and 6B47s and, the Russian fatigues and uniforms and Spetsnaz gear and Gorka suits, all that sort of stuff. You could study that, look it up online. It's on Wikipedia, Ubisoft, and you could find it, put it in the game, maybe call it something different so you don't get copy striked, but it's pretty simple. I mean, people do it in Arma every day, people do it in Squad. There's all these mods for all these military games out there that do exactly this. This system would also allow you the ability to have sort of microtransactions attached to certain types of gear. So let's say certain special patches or certain special types of camo that aren't common types of camo. Don't put microtransactions on multicam and woodland and things that, people are going to want to have primarily, but then maybe special camos, like special camos that not many people know about. You can put microtransactions on that. Yeah, go ahead. Put microtransactions on vehicle skins so that when you jump into a certain type of vehicle, maybe let's say a little bird helicopter, a desert tiger stripe camouflage camouflage gets painted onto it. Something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool, honestly. I would pay for that. I would pay for a desert skin for a helicopter if it wasn't too expensive. I know a lot of people don't agree with microtransactions, but again, I'm trying to vouch this to Ubisoft straight up, and they're not gonna want it unless I tell them that, you know, that's an acceptable form of microtransaction. With post-launch content as well, you could add more maps into the game, and with those maps would come new military factions to fight against, with new types of strategies and structure and ranks and vehicles and weapons. All of that sort of new gear that would be added into the game could be usable by the player if they had, let's say, the season pass or something. If they had the season pass at the time that that DLC came out, or afterwards, then they could unlock the weapons and gear that came with that DLC and attach it to their player. The weapons and gear wouldn't be crazily different than the weapons and gear that were already in the game. It would mostly just be aesthetics, maybe slight differences. But again, there's already going to be enough weapons in the base game that cover all amounts of different types of weapons: anti-material rifles, shotguns, LMGs, MMGs, HMGs, assault rifles, assault carbines, pistols, machine pistols. All that sort of stuff should be in the base game. Helicopters, planes, every type of weapon, every type of vehicle should be in the base game, but different variants of those types of weapons could come in DLC as a pay-to-grab sort of thing. I'm just throwing that out there as what I would deem as an acceptable form of currency, because the people that bought the season pass obviously think the content is good enough. So if the content of the base game isn't good enough, then people aren't going to buy the season pass, and Ubisoft won't get any money. So it's kind of a win-win there, I guess. I don't know. You would still be able to pick up the enemy weapons within a, let's say, a raid of a new enemy faction, but if you didn't have the season pass, you couldn't start the operation with that weapon on your character, for example. Something like that. Something where it's not too intrusive, but it's just something that's nice to have. And again, I know that there's going to be people watching this video that just absolutely say no to microtransactions, and I respect that. I would totally agree with you. This is Ubisoft we're dealing with. This game isn't perfect. It's not a pipe dream. It's a potential game. Now, there's actually the third mode that I haven't talked to you about yet. We've talked about the operations. We've talked about kind of the 30-minute mini operations that would be a little bit shorter and smaller player base, something you could eat before breakfast. But also, what about this PvP mode I've not mentioned yet? Well, this would be a asymmetric PvP. I'm kind of tired of the Ghost Recon Ghost War stuff. I played like 10 minutes of it on Breakpoint, played a few days of it on Wildlands, and I feel like it was fun, but it was nothing really special, nothing that really caught my attention, and I feel like I would want something more tactical out of what's supposed to be a tactical shooter game. If you've ever watched our asymmetric PvP operations on Arma 3, again, I love just that I'm referencing Arma 3 again. People are going to comment at this video saying I'm wanting this to be Arma 3, but I'm really not. Arma 3 is a clunky game, very complex, way too complicated. I wouldn't want it as a console game. But we have this game mode that I created in Arma 3 that is asymmetric. It's where 4 Navy SEAL style guys, they got 416s, you know, night vision goggles, IR lasers, suppressors. They are basically tasked with attacking a small island that has a military installation on it. There's a much larger enemy force, let's say 4 versus 16, and this 16-man enemy force has MRAPs. They've got maybe some even infantry fighting vehicles. They've maybe got some patrol helicopters, maybe not guns on them or anything, but just patrol helicopters. They've got mortars. They've got all of these weapons and all of these vehicles at their disposal, but it's nighttime, and they don't have night vision goggles. They're more of maybe a rebellion sort of Russian force, or maybe a Middle Eastern militia force. They're something that doesn't have the technology of the Ghost team. That's the 4 guys with 416s and night vision goggles. The Ghost team has, you know, thermal rangefinder binoculars, and they have suppressed M4s, and they have scuba gear and the ability to halo jump if they want. There's a lot of different ways that they can attack these objectives on this island, and this island is pretty large. If you ever want to know what I'm talking about in detail, just go watch the videos. I'll link them right at the top of the description down below this video. They're very fun to watch, and I feel like this would be something that could be smoothened out, balanced very well, and put into a streamlined console experience that would be pretty fun to play. I don't know. I feel like it'd be really interesting. It might not be to some, you know, big old Ubisoft developers, but I think it'd be kind of cool. And I'd highly suggest checking out our video on that game mode because I don't want to explain it here. It's literally a video. So that is my thorough idea for a Ghost Recon game that could be good. I think if a game came out, I am pretty positive. I'm not trying to be cocky here. I'm pretty positive that if a game came out that was similar to what I've described in this video, it would be received at least as a decent, good tactical shooter game. That's very unlike what we heard with the reception of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which seemed to be, in the end, just a very similar kind of copy-paste of Wildlands, but with poorly placed microtransactions in the game. So I want to know your thoughts. What do you think about this idea? I hope you watched the whole video. I know it's pretty boring to listen to me talk for about 40 minutes straight, but I think that this is a really cool idea, and I hope that this gets to Ubisoft. So if you know any devs at Ubisoft or know any community managers or something, try to send them this video. I think that this would be a good idea. I know that Ghost Recon probably won't be back for a few years after the failure of Breakpoint, the colossal failure. I am literally quoting like the guy who was the marketing manager or something. Like they even said to their stockholders, they're like, yeah, the Breakpoint did bad. but I hope that when Ghost Recon happens to come back, we could see something that's a little bit better fleshed out, that's a little bit more difficult. And maybe it won't be Ghost Recon that takes this idea and runs with it. Maybe it'll be somebody else. But I hope that we'll get to see a shooter game like this in the future, because I feel like that would be my dream shooter game. But it's also an accessible shooter game, a rational shooter game, something that could be made. It just would take the right developers with the right passion for it, and it could be done. So tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next one.